Hello, everyone. That Weems guy here for an off the beaten path episode because this is just going to be me tonight. Um, and this is a topic that I thought I had talked myself out of addressing, but my self-control has waned, and I'm going to address it because I keep seeing it pop up in the gunosphere on social media. And we're going to talk about the recent attempts to basically gut the NFA via the reconciliation process. Now, we're going to set the stage here. First, a reconciliation process may only deal with three things: uh, revenue, spending, and the debt limit. Revenue, spending, and the debt limit. Keep that in mind. All right, there is more to the Constitution than our beloved Second Amendment. The Constitution is made up of several articles and a bunch of other amendments other than just the second. One of the articles, Article 1, details the legislative branch of our federal government, and Article 1, Section 5 uh, authorizes each House of Congress to establish its own rules. Therefore, the rules that each house establishes are constitutional because the Constitution authorizes them. See how that works? Um, from the time of ratification of the Constitution up through 1917, an individual senator could block something from coming to a vote using a tactic that is known as the filibuster. If you've ever seen that famous movie, a great movie, Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, starring James Stewart, you should be familiar with filibuster. If not, go watch that movie and listen to the rest of this episode. Uh, as I said, a single senator could block items from coming to a vote by filibustering it. In other words, they had to physically go stand in the well of the floor, get control of the floor, be recognized, get control, and then hold the floor if forced to do that by the other senators. Sometimes senators will work in tandem or teams and keep a filibuster going. Um, but in essence, one person in the Senate could block bills or items from moving through the Senate. Not very democratic, is it? Well, we're a republic, not a democrat, not a democracy. So uh, that's in place from 1789 all the way up through 1917. The Great War is raging in Europe. Several bills are moving through Congress and are getting lodged or stopped in the Senate via the filibuster. And the Senate, the majority party in the time, changed the rules and they established a tactic known as the cloture. And as that rule was initially established, any senator could make what was called a cloture motion, and if they got 2/3 of the Senate to vote in favor of cloture, it ended debate and brought an item before the Senate. Now there's a time limit for it ends debate after a certain amount of time. But basically, a cloture vote just says, all right, we're going to bring the matter to the Senate for a vote. Now, keep in mind that a senator voting in favor of cloture does not mean they're going to vote in favor of the actual item up for a vote for the Senate, be it a nomination, be it a bill, whatever. Um, so from 1789 to 1917, a single senator could stop things in the Senate. As of 1917, we get this rule that 2/3 majority of the Senate could force things to an actual vote. 1975, the party in power changed the rules again and changed cloture from 2/3 to 3/5. Now, with 100 senators, 3/5 is 60. So, as it stands right now, um, any senator can block an item unless 60 senators say, we're going to end debate. That's why you always talk about they got to get to 60 in the Senate. Um, however, the majority party makes the rules. During President Obama's administration, his nominees to the lower federal courts, is everything below the Supreme Court, were being held up in the Senate, and the Democrats changed the rules to say that no senator can filibuster judicial nominations below the Supreme Court. And that allowed President Obama to start putting judges on um, the federal bench via simple majority vote in the Senate. Confirmation of appointments is the sole power of the Senate. So that's not a legislation that has to go through both. When President Trump took office in his first term, the Republicans got control of the Senate and they changed the Senate rules to remove the filibuster from Supreme Court nominations, which allowed President Trump to place several justices on the Supreme Court without the filibuster, without having to have cloture, by a simple majority vote in the Senate. Now, remember, when you change the rules can be used against you. The next time there's a Democratic president and a Democratic Senate, um, that president nominations are likely to sail right through the Senate. That's how it works. You know, the rules for thee are the rules for me in this instance. So back to reconciliation and NFA. Also, we have to bring up there was a law in 1974, I believe it's called the Congressional Budget Impound Act or something along those lines, where there's federal law that restricts the reconciliation bills to, as I said in the outset, um, to revenue, spending, and the debt limit. No policy changes in a reconciliation bill. So no things that, excuse me, things that aren't revenue, spending, or debt limit cannot be attached to a reconciliation bill uh, without it reverting back to a filibuster being allowed. Folks, that's what happened with the attempts to get the NFA. The House does not have filibuster and cloture. Um, Republicans in the House attached measures to basically get the NFA in the ominous budget bill that was going forward. It goes passes the House, it goes to the Senate. The Senate parliamentarian said, all right, the $200 tax that is part of an NFA purchase is related to reconciliation, the budget, spending, and debt limit, because the tax is part of budget and revenue. Excuse me, not budget, but revenue. Taxing is how you get revenue one way. But the other changes to the NFA fall outside of the reconciliation process. Folks, the parliamentarian was absolutely correct in her ruling. And I know a lot of you that are listening, if you've made it this far, are very angry with me at the moment, but that doesn't change the fact that she was ruling. And I'm going to give you for instance, example. Uh, your baseball team is up to bat. The pitcher from the other team throws a perfect strike right down the middle, over the knees, below the waist, across the plate, and your batter doesn't swing. And the umpire calls it a strike. Why should the umpire be fired for calling a strike? Hmm. So the parliamentarian did her job, did it what she's supposed to do. Don't blame her. Now, back to the matters at hand. Um, so everything but the $200 tax was stripped out of the reconciliation process. Removing the $200 tax stayed in because that is something that could be done via reconciliation. It passes the Senate, goes assigned to the president has signed it. I believe the legislation takes effect January the 1st as far as taxes being removed from NFA items. Still got to do all the other nonsense. Um, Now, here's the thing. The majority party controls the rules. The Republicans are currently the majority party. there could have been a vote to overturn the parliamentarians' ruling, and the Republicans chose not to do so. That still doesn't make the parliamentarian wrong. Okay. Um, it's very rare that the Senate overturns the parliamentarian uh, on just on the ruling when the parliamentarian is correct, which the parliamentarian usually is. I like that word. I competed in parliamentary procedure when I was in high school. We won the state championship. Um, so, what can be done to change the NFA? Well, it's going to have to be done through regular legislation, which means you're going to have to get 60 votes in the Senate to end a filibuster and bring the matter to a vote, and then get at least half plus one to vote in favor of repealing, altering, whatever the NFA. It just simply cannot be done via the reconciliation process. Your anger at that doesn't change the facts. So, yeah, if I were a Republican willing to champion this issue, I would be out campaigning for people to elect enough Republicans to the Senate to get to 60 votes so that they could get it through. Yeah. I've seen a lot of anger expressed at the Republican. Oh, that's it. They failed us. We're never going to vote for them again, whatever. Okay. That's the political process. That's your right. Understand you get further away from repealing the NFA if you do that. Um, it's just simple numbers, folks. It's simple facts. So, again, in closing, a reconciliation bill may only deal with revenue, spending, and the debt limit. Items other than that have to go through the normal legislative process. For those of you that choose to return next week, we'll have a regular episode. We're actually going to have a pretty good debate from two very well-known people in the industry. So I'm looking forward to that. I am not looking forward to the hate mail that I'm going to get this week and all the comments on YouTube. But do better than uh, do some research. I will likely ridicule you humorously, at least I think humorously, at if you just respond with nonsense. Okay. Well, I hope to see most of you back next week and the weeks beyond. I know some of you aren't going to, but um, in addition to being a cop and the gun guy, I am a professor of American government, and I can't help but be what I am. So there you go, folks. For those that made it this far, thank you for your time.